to some extent, we've kind of felt that way the last few weeks. One game season, and we're excited about it, and it's going to be fun on a Sunday afternoon at home. We're thankful for that.
All right, B, this is a team you know exceptionally well. Do you think the Eagles' momentum, if that's a thing in sports you believe in, can carry them past the Seahawks?
Well, I do believe in momentum. I do believe in getting hot at the right time. Chris Canty and the New York Giants, that can help you and propel you to winning football games. Here's the thing that has to go right for the Eagles. They've had so many injuries. They've been, all of the wide receivers have hurt. Brandon Brooks, right guard, Lane Johnson, right tackle, have been injured. Here's what has to happen for the Eagles to make this game right. They have to get a running game going with Miles Sanders. They have to get a screen game going with Boston Scott. Zach Ertz, if able to play, has to play a major part. Dallas Goedert, obviously, is going to have to play a major part. If all those things go right, they have a chance of winning this game, and this is why they have a chance. They're playing at home. At home, their defense gives up 12 less points. On the road, they give up 29 points a game. At home, they give up 17. At that point, with all those injuries that you have on that offense, 17 points, you can find a way to get to 18. You can find a way to get to 21. I think Carson Wentz, and the way that he's built his confidence with the guys around him these last few weeks, can find a way to get to that point. That's because they're playing at home. I think their defense can hold up against this Seattle offense.
And B, what's going to help Carson Wentz out is that the Seahawks defense is awful at covering backs and tight ends in the passing game, and that's who Carson Wentz has featured with so many of his starting wide receivers out. He doesn't have Aguilar, he doesn't have Jeffrey, he doesn't have Jackson. He's relying on Greg Ward and Deontay Burnett, guys like Rob Davis. But that's not who we should look to. It's Dallas Goedert, it's Boston Scott, Josh Perkins. You need to lean on those guys. We'll see what happens with Zach Ertz. But ultimately, it's going to come down to their ability not to turn the football over on offense. If you can do that, you're going to give yourself a pretty good chance. Because if you look at the Seattle Seahawks, you look at them on the offensive side of the ball, what do they do well? You used to be able to say they could run the football and rely on Russell Wilson late game magic. But Russell Wilson hasn't been the same the last month of football, and that running game hasn't been the same with all the injuries. Defensively, what do they do well?
They force turnovers.
Pretty much nothing but forcing turnovers.
Yep.
So, I mean, again, if you don't turn the football over, if you don't give this Seahawks team any oxygen, any life by being able to do that, then I feel good that the Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles have a chance to advance.
And what happened in the first matchup between these two teams? The final score, that was 17-9, but it was 17-3 with 30 seconds left, and the Eagles scored a touchdown in the waning moments that didn't really matter. Philly had 5 turnovers in that football game. Carson Wentz alone had 4 of them. It was arguably the worst game he played all year just because of those turnovers. 2 picks, 2 fumbles. He actually fumbled 3 times, but they recovered 1 of them. And Seattle still only scored 17 points. You give up 5 turnovers, you only score 17 points. Philly's defense at home this year has been quite good. On the road, they've been abysmal. At home, they've been quite good. I don't know how much of that's the crowd has made it hard for the opposing team to audible. They feed off the energy, whatever it is. This is a team that's given up less than 17 points per game at home and 28 points per game on the road. And listen, I think Seattle's going to win. Seattle's my pick. But to make it clear about how Philly can do it, you know this is going to be a close game. Seattle does not blow people out. They have decided over the last few years to abandon an offensive philosophy that would allow for some blowouts, which is let Russell Wilson be special throughout the game. Instead, they treat their future league MVP quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks of his generation, like break in case of emergency. We will use him. We'll run the ball into the line of scrimmage twice on 1st and 2nd down, end up with a 3rd and 12, and then ask Russell Wilson to go do something for us. Because of that philosophy, because they are wildly conservative on 4th down situations, on when to punt, when not to punt. They always play close football games. So the hope for Philadelphia is it a 4-point game in the 4th quarter? And can Carson Wentz channel some of what he channeled in the 4th quarter against the Giants, against Washington, what he did throughout the game against Dallas, and have another signature moment in his young career? I don't think they'll be able to do it, but they'll be in position, I believe, where it's at least possible, because this is going to be the closest game of the weekend, I think. This game, Philly doesn't have the skill position guys left to blow anybody out, and Seattle doesn't even try to blow anybody out. So we're going to be in a close game late into the game this weekend. Coming up, is the Pats dynasty over? I've been telling you. That's ahead on first.
I don't expect to see the very best version of Kirk Cousins, because he's showing us when the stage is at its greatest and the lights are at their brightest, he plays small. And so, I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. We can just go to the numbers. We have tangible evidence. In 1 o'clock starts, Kirk Cousins has a 33-18 record with 101 touchdown passes to 40 interceptions and a 98.7 passer rating. In non-1 o'clock starts, which are the primetime games, 4 o'clock games, 8 o'clock games, Kirk Cousins has an 11-24 record, a 94 passer rating, 54 touchdowns to 31 interceptions.
Yep.
So, I mean, he turns the football over. He makes mistakes that he typically wouldn't when he's on the big stage. And so, yeah, I don't think that anything's going to be different going into this playoff game in the Superdome, which is a tough place to play in the regular season, not even including the postseason. That's going to be a raucous crowd. And then on the other sideline, you got a quarterback like Drew Brees that keeps the pressure on the opposing quarterback. So, yeah, with a banged-up Dalvin Cook, not knowing what version of him you're going to get, I don't expect to see a very good version of Kirk Cousins.
Well, you mentioned the version of Kirk Cousins, and what you're talking about really is, in my opinion, I think Kirk Cousins, he doesn't need to be the hero. If this defense can keep it close, that's the big question to me. Can this defense put the Saints in a position where they're not scoring 21 points in the first half? If they can keep this game close, then they can run the football with Dalvin Cook with the injured shoulder. Hopefully he comes back healthy. Now Kirk Cousins doesn't have to be the hero. So if I'm Kirk Cousins, I'm begging this defense. I'm trying to empower them to try to get their job done so I don't have to try to be the hero. But a lot of those primetime games, he had to be the hero because those defenses were giving up a bunch of points, and Kirk Cousins didn't live up to that. This is a run-first offense. This is a team that needs to get the run game going with Dalvin Cook, who really, over the last few weeks, just hasn't been himself. He's been injured, been in and out of the lineup. But when healthy, Dalvin Cook is going to get you 130 yards, plus some yards in the receiving category. That's going to put Kirk Cousins in the position to make him successful. This defense and Dalvin Cook, not Kirk Cousins being the hero.
So a couple things. I don't totally buy into the idea that the lights turn on, the lights get brighter, and Cousins wilts, even though that clearly happens. What I think is more likely the case is, who are you playing in primetime games? The best competition. It's the best games. It's why you're putting them either in the 4 o'clock window or at night. So I think the narrative should be more so not Kirk Cousins can't perform depending on the time of day. And I'm not saying that's what you were saying, but that's what we always hear. 0-8 on Monday Night Football, bad record on Sunday Night Football. It's Kirk Cousins feasts on bad opponents and struggles mightily against good opponents. And that was the case this year as well, even though this year, over the totality of it, you might say this is the best year of his career. How did he do against Green Bay, the team that won the NFC North, their biggest competition? 0 for 2 as far as wins. In 2 games, a combined 355 yards passing. So what's that, 177 yards per game? 2 touchdowns, 3 picks, and an abysmal 56 quarterback rating. Against Seattle, he had a subpar game, a playoff team. Against Kansas City, a game the Vikings lost to Matt Moore. It wasn't Kirk Cousins, Patrick Mahomes. It was Kirk Cousins, Matt Moore. He threw for 220 yards and completed 50% of his passes. There was only one playoff team all year long that Kirk Cousins played well against, Philly. The Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles' defense was really struggling then, not that it ever got great. And so I think you can say Kirk, against the best competition dating back to his time in Washington, has not performed. If he can't perform against the Saints, then the narrative that already exists on him is going to be even further entrenched, and it's going to be fair. Where the Saints are weakest is their pass defense. Additionally, and you brought this point up a few weeks ago, and I think it's been overlooked, the Saints suffered 2 major defensive line injuries. Marcus Davenport, the kid they traded a first-round pick to trade up for to get a couple years ago, and is it Rankins? Sheldon Rankins. And so I know Rankins thought of as more of a run stopper, but Davenport's definitely a pass rusher. You lose 2 defensive linemen, and the Saints already had the 20th ranked pass defense in football. That should be where the Vikings have an edge. If they have an edge anywhere in this game, it should be their wide receivers trying to go downfield. That does put the game on Kirk Cousins' shoulder, because I think the Saints are going to sell out to stop Dalvin Cook and see if Kirk can beat him. And if he doesn't, and I wonder what you think of this, if the Vikings, and he's got 1 year left on his deal, and they'll probably finish it out. But if he can't win this football game, and he's up against the odds here going in the Superdome, I think they look at it and say, we hired Kirk Cousins, we signed him to get us over the top, and he's just not quite good enough to do that.
No, you'll absolutely be right. I mean, Kirk Cousins would not have fulfilled his end of the bargain. That's why they went out and signed him a couple of years ago, because they had a defense that was a championship caliber unit. They were just waiting for the offense to come along, and so much of that has to do with getting solid quarterback play. Now, in this Gary Kubiak offense, it's user-friendly when it comes to the quarterback position. When you get to the line of scrimmage, it ain't a whole bunch of checks at the line. I mean, it's essentially get up there and run the play, and a lot of that is inside zone, outside zone, and then operate off of play action, get him on the edge, and throw down the field and give him clear windows with bootlegs. So I look at Kirk Cousins, it couldn't have been set up for him any better in terms of being able to have success. You got Adam Thielen back now. You're supposed to have Dalvin Cook back now. You're all out of excuses. Yep. You got Kyle Rudolph. You got Irv Smith. You've got the supporting